Go to Edinburgh. To Joanna Cherry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I suspect even the most ardent unionist would find it hard to disagree with the basic proposition that a country in a voluntary political union should at all times have the right to choose its constitutional future. The real question is when Scotland should be able to revisit the decision made in September 2014. British politicians telling us now is not the time tends to mean not ever. So let's analyse what once in a generation means in political terms. The 6.5 years which have passed since the 2014 referendum have been tumultuous. We've had 3 general elections, 3 prime ministers, and a UK-wide referendum on EU membership, followed by a serious push for a second referendum on the same topic from people such as the Honourable Member for Edinburgh South, who is so adverse to a second independence referendum. Notwithstanding those efforts, Britain has left the European Union, and now we are suffering a global pandemic. That's a lot more political change than normally happens in the span of a generation. And the result of all this turmoil is that more and more people living in Scotland want to revisit the decision made in 2014. England and Scotland chose markedly different paths on Brexit, and the fact that people have more confidence in the Scottish Government's handling of the pandemic than the British Government's are major factors in the change of heart taking place in Scotland. Perhaps the biggest problem the UK government and the official opposition have in attempting to stop another independence referendum is the existence of the Northern Ireland Act of 1998. That act provides that the Northern Irish Secretary may allow repeat referendums on Irish unity with only a 7-year interval in between. Even allowing for the very different context, if 7 years between referendums on the question of whether to leave the United Kingdom is acceptable for Northern Ireland, why is it not acceptable for Scotland? And I would like to hear the Minister who sums up today address that question directly. The British government have pressed ahead with their constitutional priorities regardless of the pandemic and its economic fallout. So why shouldn't the Scottish government? The need to rebuild our economy and our society in the wake of the pandemic provides an impetus to rethink our priorities. If we don't take radical steps now, there will be no change, and we will go back to where we were before, which was not a sustainable place. In order to transform Scotland, we need full control over all the decisions that affect us, not just limited powers to tinker around the edges. Independence for Scotland is not an end in itself, but a means to make sure that the vital decisions about how we run our economy and our society are taken close to home so that we can do things differently and better. Thank you.